Hello and welcome again. Today we're going to be talking about why does a narcissist last longer in some relationships? Okay, we're going to talk about this. We'll get into that. A lot of people who have dealt with narcissists often ponder on the longevity of narcissists in some transactions, relationships. And, I've been calling these transactions because that's what they are. And how do they maintain in some and not others? Well, we have to think about there's a lot of different factors that go into this, but on the average, it's based off the situation and to a certain degree dependent on the psychological health and awareness of the particular supply that they're dealing with. Of course, there's going to be different scenarios and different things that play out in these situations from one person to the next. But a major underlying factor has to do with awareness. So the healthier the person is or a person is psychologically, the less likely the narcissist will survive for long periods of time in that type of environment or situation around that person. This is a big reason why narcissists seek to play on people's weaknesses and to further exploit and destabilize them in that regard. If they successfully manage to keep a person submersed and focus on their weaknesses, they'll be less likely to rise up and challenge the narcissist's oppression over them. Now, when I say the narcissist exploiting and destabilizing a person, this is the devaluation. Well, not initially devaluating, but they do a lot of passive invalidating of a person. So if you ever come across somebody who, and you're doing something that, is you're accomplishing stuff and it's something that you can be praised for or whatnot. If you find that someone's always downplaying what you're doing, trying to get you to not talk yourself up when, it's normal to do that. You're supposed to have a period of being able to be proud and happy and boastful about certain accomplishments. That's allowed at a certain amount of period of time. And then you go back to being normal and you focus on which is, your next goal or your next thing. But if you find someone that is quick to try to hurry up and downplay what you're doing, that's a form of invalidation. That's a form of invalidating you to keep you at a humble level. And narcissists are notorious at this because they can't have anyone feeling greater or better than them, because when you are in a good mood or a good state of being, it exudes a certain type of energy from you, and that energy builds confidence. Confidence builds strength. It builds better judgment. So if you have the confidence in knowing that, hey, you are doing a good job, you are doing what you're supposed to do, and that is commendable, it should be acknowledged and praised for a certain amount of time. That's good. But if someone wants to take that away from you, they're invalidating you. They're trying to control how you feel about yourself, because that way of reacting and feeling bothers them. It creates the inferiority complex, or it agitates the inferiority complex already existing within them. That's a major red flag. You have to pay attention to that. So narcissists find people who are used to or who have been exposed to a lot of dysfunction and have managed to normalize unhealthy interactions. And most of us, including myself, have been exposed to some sort of unhealthy interaction at a certain period of time in which we had normalized it. Usually this comes from childhood. This is a lot of stuff that you may have seen coming up as a child, which if you came up around it, you're bound to get, you know, you're bound to get used to it and not see anything wrong with it. Right? Now, when we've been accustomed to tolerating and dealing with toxic behaviors in people, we build up a certain immunity towards that, and the effects are minimized in our minds, but in the end, the results always end in a devastating manner, or it hinders, or it puts us back. It blocks our progression. Okay, so we end up going in circles. And in many instances, we shrug it off as just, part of life or no big deal, but we keep it moving with an infected state of mind, from these numerous unhealthy interactions. Okay, and it's not good to just immediately go into a situation where it's like, okay, you went through this and you just shrug it off, write it off, and it's nothing. Okay, that's not healthy. That's not a good deal. That's not something that, will help better you. It'll help, it'll actually bring you down in a lot of ways. Okay, and it'll cause you to repeat the cycle. And we have to look at our belief systems, and this comes from a lot of our belief systems are faulty. Our boundaries are unhealthy, and our principles are shoddy, and outdated. These things left undone will create the perfect atmosphere for a narcissist to exploit and thrive in for long periods of time undetected. So the person won't know what it is. They'll know something's wrong. They'll know, oh, we're arguing all of this, but they'll just write it off as, oh, this is what usually goes on. It can be worked out. We'll get over this. No, it won't. It won't end in anything progressive. Once that situation runs its course, the narcissist is on to the next person. They're really like a virus. And for the healthy person who has recognized what healthy interactions are and have sound boundaries that are intact, will quickly recognize the narcissist type of individuals and remove them or limit their interactions with them accordingly. See, that's the biggest difference right there. People, and I say this a lot, people who have dealt with a narcissist before and they've taken to the lessons, and if all of you are here and getting this knowledge, you run a slim chance of getting into another situation with a narcissist and going the distance with them. You'll see it way early, and you'll cut them out. You'll recognize it a lot faster. The main thing that we're looking for here is awareness and the ability to recognize toxic mindsets in people. For example, let's say you came up in an environment or around people who were constantly scheming, constantly looking at how to get an advantage or a one-up on somebody. Now, this is what you grew up around, right? And so by seeing this and just seeing how people go about doing this, if you grew up around that without being properly guided or instructed in the right way, you'll pick up all of those traits too. By default, even if you're not scheming, you won't think anything's wrong with somebody going out to scheme and try to get a one up on somebody, or manipulating somebody. You won't see it as wrong if that's what you came up and that's what's going on around your environment. So if you get in that situation and it's happening, you're not gonna react as adverse as someone who was taught certain principles and did not come up around that and was made aware that that was not right. If you go around a person that had been made aware of that, they'll quickly recognize that this is not the type of person that I should be around. And they will feel unease. They will feel unease around them. And they'll probably more than likely remove themselves from that type of person. But many people who have grown up around toxic and people and environments are unable to recognize dysfunctionality. They just can't. When they see it, they just go forward. Now, they may see it as it's wrong or whatnot, but part of that is because they've dealt with so much of it in their lives. They can be overconfident and feeling like they can deal with it or they can handle it. Like, oh, it won't get too out of line where I can't pull it back in or gain control over the situation. And that's where they mess up at. Not only do they not recognize it, even worse, they cannot properly respond to it, which allows even more exposure to this type of toxicity. And that's a big thing right there. And it just keeps going and going and going. So you'll see narcissists with people who have no clue, who have just been, all of their interactions have been somewhat similar to where they have just accepted that this is just what it is. And by accepting that this is just what it is, they also accept the interchangeable parts of these type of situations where it lasts a certain amount of time, then it's over, then it's on to the next. So they start being okay with the constant shifting and changing and replacement of people. They get used to that. And so you say, oh, well, why are narcissists getting to the main point, or why are they able to last longer in some situations? Well, because that person that they are dealing with has yet to properly identify the situation as a toxic, dysfunctional transaction. They haven't realized the danger and the trouble that they are facing. And again, as I said, they've already pretty much accepted that, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'll move on. I'll try to find someone else. And then that becomes an addiction too. You know, even for the supply, the victim, it becomes an addiction to try to find something better or something that's right, that's going to be right for them. But again, they're just as toxic too by not recognizing the way that they're functioning, which is contributing to the problem as well. Narcissists are like viruses, in my opinion, in some instances at least. If you look at how viruses affect and gain interest to the body and begins to compromise your cells by attaching themselves to your cellular structure and then making copies of itself while killing the cell off, the narcissist, pretty much does the same thing and how they operate in a similar fashion by mirroring a person and creating a fake rapport to gain trust and acceptance while secretively undermining the person, setting them up for failure so they can prolong their ability to use the victim for whatever they need to get out of them. Just something to think about. I know a lot of people may not have gotten to that point of recognizing that is a um, something significant in a large factor to what goes on with these situations when narcissists are, going on more than 3 years with a person. With now more information that's put out here that people can gain access to, which wasn't easily or readily available, 10, 15 years ago, most people stayed in the dark, just recycling the same dysfunction, passing on toxicity. Anyway, make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the like button if you like the video. Share the video, sometimes it helps people. Until next time, have a good one.